This is a pod. A pod about dogs.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Healthy Dog Pod. Today we have, as always, myself and Sophie, and we
Hi.
have Anna from Lyka Pet Food.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming in. Today we are going to be talking about Anna's baby, Anna's project, Lyka Pet Food, which is do you know what? Who's best to describe it? Anna, tell us what Lyka is.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anna Podolsky. I'm the founder and CEO of Lyka Pet Food. Lyka is a direct-to-consumer human-grade dog food company. So we produce all of our food in-house. It's minimally processed, made from 100% whole foods, and we ship directly to the customer's door.
Fantastic.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to kind of see the food firsthand and give my dog it, and I'd eat it.
Yeah, well,
You did.
people do eat it. So our team,
Oh, really?
Yeah, our team does taste testing. So whenever we're making a new recipe or refreshing current recipes, they actually go in and try the different foods and compare and give us tasting notes. And I do know that some customers have eaten it as well. We have one, their kid feeds the dog and kind of eats out of the packet afterwards.
One for you, one for me.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
It is genuinely, I would consider it like top of the, that's such a good food. It's absolutely the best at what they do. Because there's such a big movement towards this method of feeding now.
Yeah.
And I know Anna's got a fantastic story about what started all this for you.
Yeah, look, so it started with my dog, Lyka, the original Lyka. Basically, I've had her since she was 6 weeks old. She's my world. And I've always wanted the very best for her.
What breed of dog is she?
She's a Border Collie cross Fox Terrier.
Awesome.
Oh,
The best.
good combo, yeah.
That is a combo and a half.
Yeah.
Good work.
So basically she, when she was about 4 years old, she was experiencing some health deterioration. So I was doing everything right. I was feeding her the top of the line commercial food. I was exercising her every day. Yet she was still experiencing little things here and there. So for example, her fur started shedding heavily, so much so that she had some bald patches. She was really itchy, so she would constantly scratch her ears and her jaw. She ended up having scars on her jaw because of it. And the vet even said that her teeth were decaying, and in a few years she'd have to get them removed. And I just didn't understand. Like, I was doing everything by the book and looking after her well. And during the same time, I was traveling for work. Prior to Lyka, I was a management consultant at Bain. So about that time, I just moved over to Chile and she was with me. So I had to buy her food there, and I was reading all the labels in Spanish and Googling and trying to work out what the ingredients were. And that's sort of when I discovered just how bad the commercial food ingredients are. And it made me kind of rethink things, and I ended up cooking for her. And the transformation was just incredible. After about a month on the home cooked diet, her fur started shedding less. She was shiny. Her itching pretty much stopped, and everyone was commenting on how much more energy she had and just how much bouncier and healthier she
Full
was.
of life.
Yeah.
I think, first off, hats off, actually just not normalizing it and going, oh, yeah, that's just the way she is. I think that we see that a lot, is people normalize bad health and go, oh, it's just the way she is. I think that's something we're all guilty of, with our own health and dog health, and everybody that we see day in, day out, we normalize because that's our reality. But hair falling out, teeth decay at 4 is not normal.
No.
And so this is the dog's body communicating something's wrong.
Yeah.
And, and you were on the other side of the world reading labels in that
Spanish.
foreign language, and you still managed to look after the dog's needs and listen to what the dog's body was communicating. So that's awesome. How did you, this is such a side topic, but how did you get her to Chile? like basic story.
Short answer on a plane.
You fell into that one.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll do that a lot.
But look, she it's a lot easier to get dogs out of Australia than it is to get them back in.
I've
Okay,
heard
how'd you
that.
get it back in? Because I was thinking that. Then.
Oh man, that was a process. So we had to start planning that about 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
And basically there's a schedule that the government requires of all these vaccines and blood tests and what have you at certain periods of time. And then when she flew back, she had to stay in quarantine for 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that's
was
right.
really stressful for, I think, both of us. The worst part is that you can't contact or see her during that time. So, yeah, I didn't know how she was doing. And then, once we got her back, she returned to her normal self within a day. She was just so happy to see us.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wow.
And that's it. Like, those things in life, traumas happen in life, and looking after the dog's health, through their gut and through their brain is so important. If that dog was in poor health, who knows? She might not have bounced back. She might have after one day, but that's a really good reason to look after the health, because stress will happen in life, and what we put into our dog preps them for that. So yeah. Tell me a little bit more. Tell me more about this Lyka story. So it started off in Chile.
Yeah, so that's when I started cooking for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, we didn't look back after that experience and noticing her just become healthier and more youthful. I just could never feed her commercial food again. After we spent some time in South America, I then moved to the States for work, and we were living in San Francisco. And that's where, the startup community and all the exciting innovation that's happening there. That's when I thought of the idea for Lyka, and I started developing the company on the side while I still had my full-time job. And eventually we moved back to Australia, and that's when I decided to leave my work and launch the company.
Oh, fantastic.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's I do love a good story of a startup. Like,
Yeah.
it's just nice to see people, again, side topic, but like just seeing people passionate about something and run with it.
Yeah.
Doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
It normally comes from some sort of adversity. It takes that kind of situation to go, oh, I can make a difference and a change. And it's, how old's Lyka now as a company?
The company so we've officially launched about a year ago, but it's been about 2 years since I started working on the idea.
That's really cool. And what sort of things does Lyka bring to the table?
Yeah. So, look, we're different to commercial pet food in two key ways. I think the first way is that we focus relentlessly on nutrition and not shelf life. So if you think about a typical commercial pet food, it's sold through retail. And what this means is the product needs to be shelf stable for many months or sometimes even many years in order for it to sit in the shelves in both the distribution centers, the warehouses, the supermarket or pet store, and then finally the customer's pantry. What this means is when the companies are formulating these foods, it's important to process the food so that it is shelf stable. But during this processing, the natural nutrients are actually lost. And what they need to do is add in synthetic vitamins and minerals to make up for that. And it's quite scary. Like if you, next time you're in Woolies or Coles, if you look at where the pet food is, you'll notice it's in the same aisle as, gardening products, cleaning products.
It is too.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is because the shelf life is much longer than even human processed food.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so with Lyka, on the other hand, because we're direct to consumer and we ship straight to our customers' doorsteps, we don't need to worry about shelf life at all, which means our first and only priority is the nutrition. And we work with our in-house vet, Dr. Matthew Muir, to formulate the healthiest recipes made from 100% whole foods.
That can make such a big difference.
100, even like humans, even us, you know, when we eat bad food, how do we feel?
Yeah.
Horrible.
It wasn't even it wasn't actually a conscious thing that I did, but I just my diet is, I eat fresh food and vegetables, and I don't store food. But as a consequence, and like I say, it wasn't actually a conscious thing. It was just something I found myself doing over time. But as a consequence, my health improved dramatically.
Yeah.
I lost 10 kilos, and it was just improved my quality of life. It improved my mental health. Whereas I know back home in England, my diet was horrible. And it was only down to education. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought, by eating fish and chips, I thought I was eating fish and potatoes. I genuinely did.
I wish.
Yeah, that's all you knew. That's what you knew. You thought was right.
Yeah.
And even for me, have you heard of Marley Spoon? It's so we get Marley Spoon delivered. You get Marley Spoon delivered too. And it's all
or other generic brands.
Shouldn't really specify, should I? And that's all fresh food, and you cook it yourself, and it makes you feel so much healthier, and you can actually pick which meals you'd like. Yeah. And after doing that, we found that, we felt so much better, because what we were doing previously was going to the supermarket and being like, oh, we'll just grab this, we'll just grab a ready meal, we'll just grab, anything that's on the shelf. And it dramatically changes your diet and the way you feel.
And even now, so sitting opposite me, she knows I'm prone to a burger. But I feel like shit the next day.
Yeah. You notice it, definitely.
Yeah. But if you normalize it, then it becomes normal. And back when I was eating unhealthily, I normalized it. This is just how I feel. This was my energy levels. Yeah. And I could go back to that point of we normalize what we see every day. And I genuinely know when I've had a burger.
Yeah, and look, I think with dog food, it's also the fact that kibble and processed food is just the status quo. Exactly as you're saying, it's the norm. And what we really need to do is challenge that and think, okay, well, why are we feeding dogs these brown balls? What is even the reason behind it?
Wasn't it because of rations in the war?
Yeah. So we have a blog post about this topic exactly. Prior to World War II, tinned dog food was quite popular. Then during the war, the price of tin skyrocketed because it was all needed for the war equipment. And at that point, kibble was invented as a shelf-stable product that didn't need tin. And consumers found it so easy and convenient that it just stuck around. So there isn't any scientific reason as to why kibble was invented.
No, and I suppose it's I knew it was. I actually learned something there. That's great. I knew it was about rations from the war.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was about food rations and not about tin. So
I didn't know that either.
So that's really cool. And I suppose nowadays, like you say, it's convenience, not just for the consumer. I suppose the people that make it, they can make it en masse, and they can just sell it on these huge volumes through processing equipment.
Yep.
I think the scariest thing now is when you look at a product and, people are saying you need to add more veggies in or add more meat in. And what they're doing is they're actually colouring the food to different colours to say they're vegetables, but they're not actually vegetables. And I feel that's quite scary. They're trying to trick the consumer into saying, hey, 20% more vegetables.
It's like having a bowl of Cheerios and colouring them green and going, there's your broccoli, mate.
Well, it happens in human food as well. You look, many products have additives and colorings just to make it look more appealing and inviting. When you look at it, for example, why is Fanta orange? Well, it's not because there's oranges in it.
Damn it!
Definitely not.
That's right, though. And we forget that the dog isn't the one that's purchasing it, and we are driven by marketing. So many of our behaviours are driven by what we see and what we are familiar with, and we will always. And this is why I think this is great, because we can influence a bit of change. Because unless you're aware of the information out there, you don't actually know that there's options and alternatives. I was when I went back to visit England, my mum, I sat down and had eggs for breakfast, and my mum was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "I'm having eggs for breakfast, Mum." "But we have cereal for breakfast." Like, "That's fantastic, Mum. What are you talking about? I want eggs." She goes, "Well, everybody has cereal. That's what we have." And I said, "Well, also, since cereal's come along, so's obesity. And everyone's just filling their bellies with sugar every morning. I don't want to do that." And she went, "Oh, shit, that would make sense." Well, yeah, it does. but nobody had ever questioned it. And here's a woman that is in her 60s, and her entire generation has been fed this information from marketing, and they don't know any better. And this is why I think hopefully our generation can challenge those norms and go, we're not in a war anymore. There's plenty of tin, mate. So we can start to go, right, okay, why are we putting this in our body? What does it mean? What are the options? And this is where brands like Lyka really do set the bar in like good quality food. I know that you source your ingredients really carefully. Are you okay telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Look, so everything that goes into Lyka is human grade. So if you and I couldn't eat it, then it's not going in the food. Yeah. We source as much as possible locally. That means all of our meats, all of our veggies, they come from the farmers and suppliers sort of within New South Wales, or sometimes up in Queensland and Victoria as well. And all the other ingredients, so our dried powders, they come from locally, or if we do get them abroad, from a reliable source. So one example of that is our bone powder. So we add in crushed bone as a good source of calcium and phosphorus. What we found is that the supply chain here in Australia, a lot of the bone powder is actually rendered in a non-human grade facility and used for things like fertilizers. For that reason, we source our bone powder from the US, where it's actually human grade and added as a human food supplement as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because as much as we would love, 100% locally sourced products, sometimes the reality is that that's not appropriate. And so this goes back down to, doing the best we can in terms of your goal of nutrition. It's not just doing the best that can because, we'll put some fertilizer in there because that's what we can get. No, let's go and get the best. And, my dog's fed, it's been fed Lyka. It is fed a raw diet. And I mean, the dog's health itself, I've had him less than a year, and he was so bad. He had kidney and liver failure. He just had 13 teeth out. And his whole back end was affected by flea bitten and dermatitis. So he looked like he was wearing a tutu from his top half and bald from the back end. And just quality nutrition. And obviously, I mean, from my perspective as a trainer and behaviorist, I look at monitoring his stress levels, which helps. But the reality is the diet has played such a key part in that, just getting healthy food. And even now, I got him in September last year, and only last night I was around sofas and we were chatting away, and Django was laying there, and I'm like, his back end has finally just grown in properly. Yeah. It's been 11 months. And it takes that long. It's taken, he was in a bad way.
He was very bad. But it's totally changed.
His body is finally starting to recover. God knows what he went through before I got him.
I know.
The rescue pump.
Yeah.
They found him on the street?
He thinks, council picked him up off the streets. We don't know how long he was there. But, can you imagine that, mate? If you ever meet my dog,
I don't know how he survived on the street.
He's pretty useless. He's a melon of a dog. I love him, but Christ.
He's the best. He's so
scared
funny.
of Soph's rabbit.
Yeah, they're so cute. They are fine. They tolerate each other. My rabbit was asleep and coming over, saying hi. And Django's shaking. And my rabbit's like, sup? And just walks off.
But that quality, it goes back down to the quality of food is what has got him to this place. And you mentioned earlier, you have Matt, a good friend of ours as well, helping you with nutrition and things like that. And that information, I can imagine, is just invaluable.
Yeah. Dr. Matthew, he is amazing. He's just so knowledgeable in this space. He's has his own clinic, All Natural Vet Care, where he's been formulating recipes and working with dogs transitioning to natural feeding for about 10 years. Now he develops all of the Lyka recipes. And yeah, I strongly believe that because of this, we're developing the healthiest dog food available in Australia. He takes all of his experience from past casework and clients and can bring that to our recipes. And yeah, we're coming up with great products because of that.
Yeah. It's actually fascinating listening to him talk about the effects of diet on everything. Like when he came in to the studio here and talked about the relationship between the gut-brain axis and skin with the microbiome, and that effectively, that information that he's got is in Lyka, which is amazing to just like that sort of thing is just second to none. Like you said, I agree. I genuinely believe that Lyka is the healthiest thing you can feed your dog in this country.
Yeah.
I love it. I refer my clients to it all the time. And
Thanks, Ian.
well, you know, it's something that I work with stress-based problem behaviors that are driven by stress, and I'm a big believer in a holistic health and actually getting on top of it from as many angles as we can. So something like your product genuinely makes my life easier. So of course I will. It just makes sense.
Exactly. And you've used that with your own dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you've seen a change,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
I haven't got drunk enough to try it yet.
Yes, we're
Should've
going to
brought
do
some
that.
in. I didn't even think of that.
We'll have to do it. We'll have to
Next time.
to try it. Yeah, no, that'll be good. So there's so many perks to this food. Can you tell us a little bit more about your customer stories that you have?
Yeah, we have so many stories. It's incredible, and it's honestly just super rewarding hearing about the journeys that our customers go through with their dogs with Lyka. It's what gets me up every day and into work. I guess one of the first things that customers notice when they switch to Lyka is improved energy. So one of our customers described it as a veil was lifted off her dogs, and she could see these younger, more vibrant dogs. Other things they notice is shinier fur and less shedding. We find that our omega-3s are very high. In fact, the AFCO dog nutritional standards recommend a ratio really high. Ours is only 3-1, whereas their recommendation is up to 20-1. So because of that, the high omega-3s translate to a shiny and healthy coat. Another thing that customers notice is increased mobility, and you know, these omega-3s are great for joints and if for senior dogs who might be getting arthritis. Yeah, and another nice side effect is the improved digestion. Our customers notice less farting in their dogs, which I'm really extremely thankful for.
Yes, definitely.
As well as smaller and less stinky poos. So yeah, like again, it's just so incredibly rewarding to when we're at work and we get a call or an email from a customer, just telling us how their dog's going and that it's changed their life and they never want to feed it anything else.
You can visibly see the results. The results are visibly coming through, and you know, from first hand, you know, watching Django literally change in front of my eyes. At first, when he was really bald, I'm like, he's not shedding. And then one of my friends pointed out, yeah, his energy's going into growing. And then it was like, oh yeah, of course. But then over time, he started shedding. And now his coat's in full. Like, so I know through experience that he's a shedder. Like naturally he sheds, but barely. You know, barely, because he's just not losing fur. And that's through the season now. You know, it's been winter and he's still barely lost any fur.
Yeah. I just want to talk about the food standards in Australia or around the world. So because I think I've been reading a lot about there's just this baseline and you just have to have that baseline for commercial foods on the shelf and then that's it. You don't have to meet certain standards. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so in Australia, there's no official pet food regulation. So
Whoa.
Scary as
I
hell.
know.
zero. The pet food industry is self-regulated. So there's a body that's made up of the big companies that essentially set up the rules and self-monitor to them following those rules. It's quite different to everywhere else in the world because both in Europe and in the States, government bodies do regulate the industry. For example, the FDA regulates pet food in the US. And yeah, it's really scary and almost unexpected for a country like Australia not to have that in place. There are certain standards called the AFCO standards that the Australian companies do follow, but again, it is self-regulated. The following of those standards.
So it's not. It's more of a suggestion than a legal requirement.
Yes, I would say that.
Wow.
I just can't even.
And that's
I don't know what
regulated
to
by the
say.
companies that are making the food, so they basically could probably put whatever they want in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the company that was having issues. It was being shipped from China, and then dogs were getting sick from it, getting lung infections.
Yeah, there's been a few cases.
yeah.
a lot of recalls.
Yeah.
A lot of recalls.
Yeah. And to me, that's why for us, human grade is super important as well, because again, these ingredients are much higher standard than pet food grade. Pet food grade is essentially everything that's left over from the human supply chain. So they're made in these rendering plants with other ingredients that go into fertilizers, chemical products, cosmetics. So, and there has been whistleblowers coming out just saying that the safety standards are really poor in these rendering plants. And that's why at Lyka we've said, look, we need to hold ourselves up to higher standards. That's why we choose human grade foods, because these foods come from a safe supply chain where they're required to undergo certain tests and safety standards.
That's it. I think those standards that they're being pet foods are being held accountable for, I guess, to some degree, are a minimum requirement. They're not optimal. And that's where I think maybe, or definitely, you're coming in and going, hey, yeah, I recognize your minimum requirement. Let's take that up. And let's actually look at what's optimal for the animal. And am I right in saying it's a species appropriate diet? So this has been designed just for dogs. Like it's a species appropriate diet, right?
Yeah.
And so that means that we are looking at something that is tailored to be the best possible thing for dogs, as with the current information we have.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic.
Look, when Matthew develops our recipes, he has the AFCO standards that are the minimum requirements, and he also has his own requirements that we strive for, which are at a higher level and more complex than the AFCO standards. And definitely, it's from his knowledge, experience, as well as other scientific input. One example being moisture content, which it's important for dogs and cats alike. I know we're not talking about cats on the show, but with Lyka, it's about 65 to 70% moisture content. With dry food, it's under even 10%, and that's an example of being a species appropriate food, because if the food itself doesn't contain enough moisture, there's a risk of the dog not drinking enough water to compensate during the day, and being chronically dehydrated.
Yeah, wow. And this is a bit of a side question, but why on dog food packets aren't carbohydrates listed?
Yeah, it's not a legal labeling requirement, even under the self regulation system in Australia.
It's so high. Like this, what I've done when I've read a packet. I can't speak. Whenever I've read a packet, I do the maths, and what we see is that carbohydrates make up such a high proportion of these processed foods.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, with a very limited knowledge on this, I'm assuming that's because carbohydrates are cheaper, easy to process, and they can fill a food with something of that nature.
Yeah, and it's necessary to have carbohydrates in order to form the kibble, like the actual shape of it,
Okay.
for it to hold its structure.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see dogs. And Matthew sees dogs at his clinics that become addicted to these carbohydrates.
Yeah.
They're high GI, high in sugar. It's like feeding your kid chips every day. You
Yeah.
get addicted to it, and sometimes moving a dog from dry food onto a fresh food healthy diet, they'll go through this sort of wanting to go back to the kibble simply because they're addicted to the carbs and sugar in it.
Yeah.
It's very scary.
That's crazy. I think the other thing that scares me in dry food as well is when it just says meat or meat byproducts, and that's it, and it doesn't say what it is. Like, what is it? Is it pork?
Hoof.
Is it bone? Is it like
Bit
That's
of bit of
scary.
tooth.
probably like that's the thing? It's so scary that you actually don't know what is in that food.
Yeah, and I would suggest for consumers to always check the label, and what you should be looking for is sort of whole proteins. So you want to be able to see whether it's the muscle meat or the organ meat, and if it's the organ meat, which types. So listed out as kidney, liver, heart, because you're exactly right, Sophie. If it just says meat and meat byproducts, it's usually a mesh of everything that's left over. If it says meal, so meat meal, it means it's been rendered at a high temperature, which means a lot of the nutrients have been lost. So again, you want to avoid anything that says meal and opt for the fresh protein.
Whoa. I'm just like in shock right now that this is happening in Australia.
Yeah, for a country that is so we love our animals,
Yeah.
but our education on them is poor, and there's not enough awareness of this sort of thing. Same with we struggle with the same thing with behaviour. Where we are a dog loving nation, and this is why I think that doesn't mean that we are informed on our dogs, but that's why with getting information out to people, I think because we do love our animals, we will make change. Coming from a perspective of we can actually be taking care of them better through whether it be behavior and training, whether it be diet, whether it be through veterinary practices, fear-free, and trying to improve the quality of life for our pets.
And the other thing is, people say, I go to the supermarket, I buy it, it's convenient. But Lyka comes to your door. That's convenient.
Yeah.
Choose the better option.
Yeah. It's, couldn't make it any easier.
Yeah, it's right there.
But I suppose that was driven by two reasons. I suppose the convenience factor, but also that quality of ingredients, like you said at the start. By actually delivering it to their door, it means that you don't have to shelf it, and that means they're getting the best possible service they can.
Yeah. The other thing that it allows us to do is actually customize our recipe portions. So this is another thing that's different about Lyka. When you subscribe to our plans, you enter your dog's profile. So we take down information such as their age, their breed, their weight, how much activity they do, and we use all these factors to come up with an ideal portion size. And so everything you get is actually customized to that portion. So if you have a Chihuahua, you might get 100 grams per day, whereas if you have a Labrador, they might get 700 grams per day. And again, that just makes it super convenient for the owner. All you need to do is split that one pouch up per day, and it allows us to control weight better. And if a dog is underweight or overweight, we can help them achieve their ideal weight over time.
Yeah, it makes gives people some accountability for what they're actually portion size as well. One of the things that I see all the time is people leave their dry food out for the dog to graze, and they have no idea how much the dog's eating, or not, or when they're taking a shit. they have no concept of the physical health of their dog because they actually don't care. They just put it on the floor and that'll be right, mate. But you won't see a dog graze with this food. I know that much. Like it's gone. The dog loves it, and so once it's in, okay, it's gone, and you can start to just take note. It'll be subconscious probably, but like you'll start to go, well, he's took 5 shits today instead of his normal 2.
Yeah.
That's abnormal. Whereas if you're not monitoring that sort of thing, if you're not being any sort of deliberation about it, how would you never know? So we start to actually ask people to be conscious of their dog's health because it will affect their behavior, it will affect their quality of life and their lifespan and everything. And, these are family members. They deserve that, right?
Okay, so tell us, how do we get Lyka to our door?
So if you'd like to subscribe to Lyka, visit our website, www.lyka.com.au. There you'll be able to build your box, which involves entering your dog's profile. It takes about a minute or two. You can then select a plan and check out. We offer an all-meal plan where we look after all your dog's meals. We also do a half-meal plan, which is a more cost-effective option if you want to do half Lyka and half of another food. And if you don't want to subscribe straight away, we also do a 7-day sampler box.
Oh, cool.
And as part of this podcast, I'd love to offer your listeners with an exclusive discount. So if they enter HDP20 at checkout, they will receive a 20% off their first box.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Little bonus prize.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your story and your information and spreading the amazing work that Lyka do.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Thanks for having me. And it was, great to meet you guys. Great to chat, Lyka. And really like the work that you're doing too.
We will definitely be getting you in for references and chats in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Sounds perfect.
Thank you, guys. Remember, don't forget you've got your Lyka pet food discount now on all your first orders. Give us your feedback. Go on our social media. Tell us how you feel about it. We love it. We love all your comments. And remember, folks, a healthy dog's a happy dog.
Woo.
And that was the pod.